Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is Tex once again with the open source office here at Intersect. Today I'm joined by James with Andamio. James, would you like to say some words?
Hey, everybody. It's good to be here.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So we're giving a spotlight here on Andamio today. If you have heard about Andamio a little bit, or if you haven't heard about it, we're going to dig in, find out what it's all about, and see why this might be an important tool for you to be using. So James, maybe you want to give just a short intro on yourself and we'll get right in.
All right. Yeah, Tex. I am a converted high school math teacher who came to Project Catalyst when I first heard about it in the summer of 2020. I showed up in Fund 1 of Catalyst with some ideas about how we might start using the blockchain to help reform education a bit. Those ideas resonated. I went on to Fund 2 to meet the other two co-founders of Gimbal Labs, where we started experimenting with some of those ideas. And as we experimented with educating Cardano developers about how to build tools, we took a project-based approach. And so as we took this project-based approach, we started building out some validators, started building out some UIs, and we ended up with a system of smart contracts that could track people's contributions and what they've learned. And that's all what's baked into Andamio now. So Andamio is the contribution management platform that has come out of our 5 years of R&D that we've done at Gimbal Labs.
That's exciting. So tell us some more. Obviously, Cardano is just constantly evolving. So what does Andamio bring and contribute to growth, functionality, and just improving the Cardano ecosystem?
Yeah, well, we all know that, what was it now? 15 years ago, Satoshi solved the money problem, and that set off a chain of events that's still ongoing and still developing today. We know that Cardano is this quote unquote third generation blockchain. And Andamio is just another piece of that puzzle. It's tackling for collaborative trust what Bitcoin did for money. Right? Now, what do I mean by that? Right? We know that we can write smart contracts on this trustless UTXO-based blockchain. And we know that we can write very specific rules about how, monetary value moves back and forth. But in every UTXO, we've got some datum as well, right? And that's programmable in just the very same way. And it's actually perfectly designed to build out a credential management system, and that you can use those credentials to unlock access to, drilling down to even very small projects, right? When you do that, the experience and the reputation that people build by working within their local spheres can then bubble all the way back up to a global state where people can find each other. And that's really the main goal here, right? We want people who might be kindred spirits to be able to find each other and work on projects that are really impactful to them, right? And what we've learned so far is that when people learn something together, they're that much more likely to have a relationship. And once you've got that relationship, hey, we've been through it together, right? Think about your friends from school, right? These are people you share something special with. And maybe you want to take that next step to build together. Andamio packages all of that, right? From the learning to the contribution side, and enables people to come together and build projects that really matter.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that, and I can align with what you're saying as far as learning together, growing together, and the more I think about developer experience, the more I think about community experience and how the two are really aligned, and there's some really unique coalescence there as well. If we jump to another side of this, how does Andamio connect with the chain? As I understood, you said there are some features that are on chain here. So are there specific components or tools or repositories that are utilized here?
Yeah, so we built a set of, I lost track. I think there's 13 different validators, right? And a whole bunch of different tokens being used. But at the end of the day, what we've done is we've built a system where we can take parameterized smart contracts and spin up an instance of either a course or a project, right, that goes directly on the blockchain, and then use prior experience of Andamio token holders to gain access to different opportunities, right? And so a specific example, maybe I have a project that was funded through Project Catalyst. I've got 10,000 ADA that I need to use to accomplish a certain task, and I need a qualified contributor to jump into that, right? Andamio gives me the Treasury smart contract where I can store those funds. And then it gives me the access contracts that I can use to pull somebody in who's got the credentials necessary to do the work that I need done, right? So all of that's on chain. It creates an easy audit trail. And most importantly, you know, it's I think a trivial thing to cover the auditability, right? Anybody who knows how to do it can trace how funds are traveling once they're dispersed from somewhere like Project Catalyst. But I think the opportunity that we haven't fully realized yet is how do you also give people a chance to kind of build up a record of what they've accomplished in this space? Whether you're a reviewer or a community facilitator, these kind of softer things, we need to have a way that people can build up a reputation that's portable, they can take with them, and they can move between projects.
For sure. I know that we're working on some credentialing and accreditation stuff or thoughts and theory as well. So I'm glad to see that that's going on elsewhere. Mm-hmm. So I think a big question for everybody, especially in an environment where we work on things or the chain itself, immutable, trustless. So, what does data handling, security features look like? Are there any off-chain dependencies, and how's that handled?
Oh man, so we do have to do a session together where we have a deep dive and give devs a chance to see what's going on under the hood. But what we currently have is a reference implementation that's live at app.andamio.io, right? And we had to build it because we need people to kind of understand what the ultimate goals of the Andamio protocol are. But what we're really trying to achieve is that the protocol is available to anybody who wants to use it, right? As you know, once information is on chain, you can't block somebody else from validating against it. And we want that. So if you earn a credential via our current, application that you can log into and use, somebody else might say, well, I want to give certain rights and privileges to this person who earned this credential. And I think a lot of people will already be familiar with this idea, right? How often do you see that there's some kind of like token release that's available to holders of this NFT? It's the very same idea, right? You can have, here's an opportunity that's available to token holders who have achieved like A or B or C, whether it's from a learning or a contribution perspective. So the off-chain dependencies, we have learning content, and we have project content. And both of those are in the database that supports our current reference implementation. What goes on chain is only like a hash, for example, of whether it's project data or the evidence that somebody submits that they completed a task, right? So there's some interesting content hosting designs still ahead of us. But it's in our best interest to make available even our Web 2 APIs to anybody who wants to pull on that content. And you might be able to imagine how like a tokenomics would follow from that problem. This content is valuable. It's hosted on this Web 2 database over here. How can other people access that so they can use it?
Well, yeah, that sounds great. And looking at that from just being the inputs, when it comes down to is all of the information that you would need to look at to conduct that audit for what's not already done. That there's not too many concerns that way. So definitely glad to hear that. So what are we looking at here when it comes to an open source environment, right? Obviously, that's a primary focus of what we're doing. So what are some ways that someone can contribute, become a part of the process? And if they don't want to use it per se, what are ways that they can help develop it further for better integration?
Oh man, I can't wait to get people playing with the SDK, right? So like I said, the reference implementation, it's live and we're going to keep developing it. But our entire dev team is really passionate about making sure that we can get the Andamio SDK into other people's hands. We're playing with some ideas along the way about how you give API access based on different on-chain artifacts. For example, in order to make a course public at andamio.io, that course needs to be associated with an on-chain policy ID. In this way, the policy ID is kind of serving as like a reverse API access key, right? Usually I need an access key to pull information from some source. We've flipped it around. And if you have that token, you can make public your information, if that makes sense, right? So it's not about who has access to pull the data in. It's about who has access to broadcast whatever information they want to across a network. And so just like owning one of these course or project policy IDs makes content available at the Andamio website, we're going to make it equally available via public APIs. So once you have that on-chain artifact, it should be accessible from anywhere. The code for those SDKs, we're in the process of setting up the public repos for it, and all of that will be going live over the next few months.
Gotcha. Access is definitely important, and I think that kind of leads really nice into scalability and performance. So performance is probably its own category, but from scalability, I guess I did have a specific question because I did a little bit of digging. I went to app.andamio.io, and I noticed that the connection right now is through Discord. So I'm curious in the scalability section if you can talk to when that might transition or also offer a wallet integration.
Ooh, okay. Well, so Jingles just last week demoed this at Builderfest, and I think this is a feature that a lot more people are going to be interested in than just Andamio users. So in our collaboration with Mesh, we have a social wallet creation feature that allows people who are new to Web3 to create a Cardano wallet without ever writing down their mnemonics. All they need is their Google, their X, or who else did we cover? Maybe their GitHub account. I forget. I have to check what the third one is. But right, we have essentially something that's very similar to an OAuth system for wallet creation, right? And that's its own topic. I'm sure we're going to want to demo that at the OSC soon enough. But we're using that. Now, that doesn't fully answer your question because the answer is about logging in to our Web2 system. And this is the big change we are working on right now. I was just working on some plans for this earlier today, and we're going to be rolling this out probably in the 4 to 6 week time frame. We're not going to need the Discord login anymore, right? Because we already have the ability to create a wallet given any of these OAuth style credentials. And so now, once we have the ability for existing Cardano users to use their wallet or brand new Andamio users to log in with one of these social accounts, now we can authenticate to our database using just a Cardano pub key hash, right? And so the entire thing is going to be built on just Web3 authentication, and all of the tooling for that will be made public through Mesh.
Absolutely. Well, that's exciting, and I would say I can't wait to hear more on that. Hopefully, we don't have to wait too long. So,
well, the FC Barcelona fan club is waiting for us to finish this. So, in order to onboard Barca Productions, we had a Fund 13 proposal to work with the global community of Barca fans. This was a prerequisite of that work, and we're moving very fast on it because we do want to roll that out for them. So a lot of reasons for us to get it out, and as soon as we do, we'll be really loud about it inside of Intersect.
Well, that's awesome. So I was thinking about the performance part of the question. I think we might have missed just a little bit of that. But I guess my question dealt with some things this past week, and it's a really interesting environment. But where exactly are the servers based for this kind of thing? Like, is this through AWS, so that's reinforced, or we decentralized other ways?
Oh man, well, okay. You're catching me fresh off of Builderfest, so forgive me if I start talking like an 8-year-old with a toy that I want to show you, right? There's a lot going on here. Right now, the only thing that's not on chain is a relatively simple content management system, right? At its core, we've got some course content and we've got some project content. All of those things need to be referenced to their on-chain artifacts, but you can imagine it's not a very complicated database, right? And so for now, that database is on a single Google Cloud instance, right? Are we satisfied with that? Of course not. And what's really exciting is that, when obviously you're not going to post a multimedia lesson directly on the layer 1 blockchain. But one thing we were talking about last week at Builderfest is, might you be able to use a dedicated Hydra head as a content repository? Right? Well, if you can run Doom from a Hydra head, you can probably host a lesson there, right? So this is what we're looking at. Is that ultimately going to be the only answer? Maybe, maybe not, but that's the R&D ahead of us. And we've been talking, right? Like, we have this working prototype. We have this working reference implementation. And just like Cardano itself, the whole thing is, it's too expensive, it's too slow, and it's probably not private enough. That's okay, right? Once you have a working demo, now you can look at it and say, okay, well, this works so far, but in order to get 1 million people using it, we probably want it to be faster, cheaper, and more private, where those things make sense. And this creates for us like a perfect development roadmap. And you can imagine my interest in being here today is, I want people using it so they can tell us, hey, where are you willing to make trade-offs, right? Some people understand exactly why a blockchain is slow, and we use it for that reason, right? That slowness correlates directly to the security that brought us here in the first place. But on the other hand, to connect with users who might not understand that, we might need a certain level of speed, right? And we can make some similar arguments for scalability and privacy. What we need to do is find the sweet spot where these tools are serving their purpose and providing people value, but they're also hitting that cost, speed, and privacy part from a reasonable spot. Now, hopefully, as a participant in Cardano, you're hearing each of these words and be like, well, sure, you can make it more scalable with a layer 2. You can make it faster with a Hydra head. You can make it more private with Midnight, right? And that's the beauty of our development roadmap, is it just follows Cardano along, and it actually gives us very specific reasons to use each of these tools.
Well, that's great stuff. I think it might be appropriate for us to take a look at the community side of things, or start moving that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's been mentioned a time or two, but what exactly is the target audience here? And if we expanded the use cases beyond that course or project for the moment, we can bring scalability back in. What else are we looking to do?
Yeah, I mean, the critical use case here is, how do you help people find their collaborators to do work that really matters, right? That is a general use case, and it's almost too big to start from there, right? So a lot of us use Discord, right? And what Discord suddenly became like an essential Web3 tool. And of course, that's not what they set out to do. They had their very clear focus on gamers and gaming communities, right? So that's how we've understood Cardano from the beginning. Cardano is a niche community right now that is building what will someday be a global scale system, right? I mean, it's global scale in terms of geographic spread, but right, we know that we haven't saturated markets anywhere yet. And that's the exciting thing we get to do, is say, look, here's a chance to practice using these tools with people who are primed to give feedback on it, right? Anytime I meet people who are dissatisfied with a system, that's a wonderful place to start brainstorming products, right? So I don't get frustrated at all about the governance circus that's going on out there right now, because I recognize that this is kind of the necessary pain of building something new. And of course, all of us now have get together and say, hey, what worked? And more importantly, what didn't so far? Because if we do that, we're going to name some problems and we're going to build some breakthrough products.
Yeah, I gotta say I agree with you. Has Andamio been able to support any other open source projects as of yet?
We actually just went live with a very quiet launch a couple weeks ago. So we're just gradually dipping our toes into really using it at scale. We've been using it to teach developers how to use Aiken, how to use general Cardano development, how to use Mesh, for example. We have a rough draft of a Cardano Go course built in collaboration with Blink Labs. And we're always talking to the TX Pipe crew about making sure that people can learn more about how to use their tools, right? So that's kind of the starting place. But we also don't want to pigeonhole ourselves and just be a platform for developers, right? That's kind of how people understood Andamio when we first rolled it out, because the only thing you could do there is go learn Cardano development. And what we're really trying to do is look at all the skills you might need to run a project in this kind of decentralized work environment. And we often look at like the Hollywood model, right? Are you familiar with this?
I'm not specifically, but tell us some more.
Right. So like blockbuster Hollywood movies, you gather a group of people who are experts at their task to work together for a concise amount of time, right? How long? Until the movie's done. In the very same way, we want people to be able to gather for projects like that. And this is very different from how the gig economy is understood, right? Often when people look at the gig economy, you're talking about project teams that want to outsource kind of the busy work of the project for as cheap as possible. And you might get the work done for a low price, but you might not have the full buy-in, right? You're not meeting the full person when you do things that way. And so the Hollywood model kind of is suggested as an alternative to this gig economy. We're not about just getting atomic people together to like do work fast and cheap. We're getting people together so that they can really focus on their unique skill sets and delivering like a higher level of value than was possible before, right? We need facilitators, we need project managers. Of course, we need developers. There's so many other roles that come together, whether we're talking about bringing a project to market, right? Or something softer like a community initiative. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what happens when we give highly skilled people the chance to opt in for predefined amounts of time to work on projects together.
Well, picking up from where you've come from, I have to say, heard it a couple of times here where you're working with the Web 2 integrations, or at least the Web 2 feel of things. And I would say that I'm keen to see the results where this doesn't feel like it's pigeonholed towards developers or towards just Web3 protocols. So,
me too, man. We all need this desperately, right? Like Cardano is on the verge of breaking through in so many ways to a world that goes way beyond Cardano. But I speaking for myself, I didn't spend the last 5 years building this ecosystem just so I could talk about Cardano all the time. That's not what I'm here for, right? I want to use these tools in a way that allows me to forget about them and actually solve the problems I want to work on out in my community.
Yep, no, 100%. So what does a roadmap, maybe just a high level roadmap, look like? We talked about a lot of things, and I'm sure some of that will probably come in the next 6 months to a year or something like that. But what maybe is a little bit longer term?
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, we have this chance to roll out inside the Cardano community, start getting feedback, roll out the SDK, like help people start building some different solutions on top of the protocol, right? And we do all of that so that we can bring this way of working, this Hollywood model, whatever you want to call it, out to the wider world. There's a lot of people who have never touched blockchain, who are not really interested in what it's offered them so far, right? And who want to work in new ways, who recognize that the ways we collaborate are broken. They're not giving people access to the opportunities they need. So what we want to do is learn as much as we can inside of Cardano and then gradually start branching out. The good news is, to help us branch out, we fell into a pretty amazing partnership with the football club, FC Barcelona. This is going to bring a lot of attention just to Cardano in general, but also we'll be using Andamio to connect the global community of Barca fans. By the way, Barca is a fan-owned sports franchise. It's unique in the world in that way, right? There's only a handful, and this is the biggest one, where the team is essentially a DAO. And so we have the chance to work with people who maybe haven't come to blockchain yet, but are already familiar with this concept of a decentralized organization. And we have the chance to bring that global community together who already share, sure, we're both fans of this club, but maybe there's something else, maybe more substantial than just watching sports, that we want to collaborate on together. And if we can leverage those kinds of interest communities to go deeper, to take their relationship and turn it into some meaningful contribution, that's where I think we might have our Discord moment and say, okay, it's not just for Cardano anymore, but we're breaking beyond out into just this world of people who want to accomplish stuff together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. More specifically, maybe what are some ways that Andamio is engaging with the community at this point?
You know, we've been putting the word out about the education materials for a long time, and anybody who wants to jump in, they can go to andamio.io, check out the Plutus PBL or the Aiken PBL course, and we're going to continue to roll out other opportunities. There's an invitation at Andamio to our newly minted Discord server. That's a place where we can start to talk, but we're going to roll out a lot more community initiatives in the weeks to come. I think I'm more of a teacher and a community organizer by spirit, but I had to learn how to be a developer for the last 18 months to get this thing built. And I'm just in the process of kind of coming out of that phase. And we're just so excited that now that this thing is built, we can get out, we can talk about it, we can put it in people's hands and really start conversations. And early returns are very exciting. I think it's an inspiring tool that's going to help people, you know, conceive of new ways that we can use this blockchain that all brought us together in the first place.
Absolutely. I'm curious, you mentioned getting back into the teaching, the organizing, and so from that perspective, what's available from a documentation point of view right now? And then, you know, what are the future goals for those types of resources? You know, where can those that are technical at least go and read up on this if they don't want to spend too much time watching us chat about it?
Yeah. Well, we have a pretty typical Swagger site that anybody can use to explore the on-chain APIs, and I'll give you that link so you can share it with this video. Perfect. We are just about ready to release there's a few open source resources in the GitHub, the Andamio GitHub, but we're not satisfied with what's there yet. And as always, documentation is the last piece we have to do a little bit better on before we release it. So look for that. And this is a place where we would love support. If anybody is just really excited to get their hands on these tools, make sure to reach out to me. I'm easy to find. And I would love support making sure that this is well enough documented that people can start to build on it.
Absolutely. Well, community engagement, it kind of does go two ways, right? So yeah, James, anything else that you'd want to share with us here on Andamio right now?
I really appreciate the chance to talk about this, Tex, and I'm excited to keep having different kinds of whether it's a community meeting, interviews are one thing, but the way we really all learn together is when we get together and build. So let's gauge interest inside of Intersect on who wants to give this a try, and I'll be happy to support in any way.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for the time today, James. And for anybody out there, leave us a like, comment, subscribe. Comment's most important here. Tell us if we're missing something. And if you're looking to get involved, feel free to reach out to us here at any time as well. Again, that would be James or myself here. Again, we're oso@intersectmbo.org. Really simple. But thanks to everyone for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks, y'all.